Point Taken, where we debate the biggest stories from the past week in sports with some of your favorite Medill Sports Talk personalities. I'm your host, Alex Campbell, and it's been a plenty busy sports week. We had the entire show written, and then last night the NFL exploded. The Women's World Cup kicks off Friday in Paris, and the U.S. women's national team is ready to defend its title and looking to capture its 4th World Cup crown. Today on the show, we'll be looking at one of the fastest growing sports in America, soccer. While soccer is booming in popularity, a 2018 study by the Sports and Fitness Industry Association found that participation at the youth level is actually down. He graduated college in 2016. I could not get hired to do something I only did well 70% of the time 3 years ago, having not done it at all since. That doesn't make any sense. So right now it's 6 a.m. here in Chicago. It's pretty quiet, pretty dead on it this time on a Saturday morning, as you'd imagine. That is except for inside of a handful of bars scattered across the north side that are home to the supporters clubs of English Premier League teams. It's a huge day in the Premier League, and we're starting things off with Chelsea Chicago here at the Greystone Tavern. Let's go check it out. Some people have waited over an hour to get their lunch today, and while today's promotion may not be profitable, it's a great way for Al's to say thank you to a city that has supported them now for 80 years. Reporting from Little Italy, Alex Campbell, Medill reports. Zion Williamson goes down. He was able to walk off, but was diagnosed with a knee sprain. You can see what happened to his left shoe. It's totally blown open early in the second, and Patrick Kane extends the Hawks' lead with his 37th goal of the season. But the Red Wings would come back in this one. Andres Athanasiou scoring in the final seconds of regulation to send it to overtime, where who else? Patrick Kane scored again to win it for Chicago. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week. So right now it's 6 a.m. here in Chicago. It's pretty quiet, pretty dead on it this time on a Saturday morning, as you'd imagine. That is except for inside of a handful of bars scattered across the north side that are home to the supporters clubs of English Premier League teams. It's a huge day in the Premier League, and we're starting things off with Chelsea Chicago here at the Greystone Tavern. Let's go check it out. It's Derby Day in the Premier League, a day of local rivalries beginning with London's 2 closest neighbors, Chelsea and Fulham.
We actually had some regulars bring the Chelsea crowd to us, and I'm the bartender that wakes up the earliest.
This is my life. This is what I enjoy. I look forward to this every single week. I went out for a few matches, out to other pubs, and there wasn't any Chelsea fans. It was fun, but it wasn't the same. I wanted to watch the match with other fans who they share the same experience with them.
And fans make quite a commitment just to watch these games with other supporters.
I came from Madison, Wisconsin. Not my first time. I know the crowd here. I know the family, the camaraderie that's here. So whenever I'm in town, I stop by on match day.
When you talk to Premier League fans, everyone has a unique story about how they became connected with their favorite players and teams.
I spent years in London with my grandfather as a child. My first match was Chelsea-Arsenal in '93. I was 6 years old, on my grandfather's shoulders, and everything just captivated me. And my grandfather wouldn't claim me if I supported any other club, so it's kind of like ride or die.
Everybody's passionate about the team, opposed to NBA games. You go there, people are on their phones. They're just there to be there. But when people go to a soccer match, they're there to actually root the team. You can't even compare the two.
Nowhere they'd rather be on a Saturday morning. Big win for Chelsea, getting a 2-0 win over their local rivals Fulham. Now we're off to the Globe pub for Arsenal against Tottenham. The Globe is one of Chicago's oldest soccer establishments, and you'll find it filled with soccer fans every Saturday and Sunday, but especially today.
Everyone's kind of amped up. Everyone woke up early because they couldn't wait to get here.
Today is the North London Derby, Arsenal against Tottenham Hotspur, regarded as the fiercest rivalry in English football.
more than just a game. You know, this game specifically is more than just a game. This means everything.
And the fans packed into the bar showed just how much it meant to them when Arsenal scored first.
Me and 3 other guys were always at the games. So we became really good friends. We're like, well, we got to start a supporters club. So in 1999, we started our Chicago Gooners.
Arsenal were one of the first teams to gain popularity in the U.S. due to their greatest era in team history coinciding with the Premier League coming to American cable TV in the early 2000s.
The first game we had, there were 8 people here. 8. And now, we have this.
As is common in many soccer bars, the Globe isn't just home for Arsenal fans, but several other soccer team supporters as well. As a result, soccer bars have become the home of soccer culture in cities across the country.
If I go to any other major city here in the States, I know that I'll have someone who's a friend, who's also an Arsenal supporter. Like, it's just like a tight network and community and family.
One big happy family today as the Gunners beat the Spurs 4-2. Most American Premier League fans will unfortunately never be able to see their favorite team play in person, but that doesn't in any way lessen the love and the passion they have for their favorite clubs. And you can bet that come next weekend, no matter how early, no matter the weather, they'll be back at their pubs supporting their favorite team. So from the Greystone Tavern and from the Globe Pub in Lakeview, Alex Campbell, Medill reports. Welcome to Point Taken, where MST personalities will be disappointed to learn that winning does not get you an automatic bid to the NCAA tournament. I'm your host, Alex Campbell, and it's been a plenty busy sports week. We had the entire show written, and then last night the NFL exploded. So we're going to be talking a lot of football today with a little soccer sprinkled in. As always, let's meet today's contestants who are all on Point Taken for the first time. We'll start with a familiar face on MST from double and triple coverage, fresh off covering the Illinois State High School Basketball Championships. Kate Constable, welcome to Point Taken.
Hi, Alex. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you, Kate. And next up, it's been a while since you've seen him on the show. He covers the Blackhawks and also hosts Finding Nemo, a podcast focused on the New York Mets. Justin Birnbaum, welcome to the show. How soon are we going to see Tim Tebow in a Mets uniform?
Well, Alex, unless something happens to my beloved Brandon Nimmo, I don't think Tim Tebow is going to greet the Mets anytime soon.
That is very disappointing to hear. And finally, it took some convincing, but we got him to come on. Akil Ganesh, how are you feeling about being out in front of the camera here?
Somewhere between utter terror and pure joy, so pretty good.
And I assume that'll be dictated by how you do on the show today. Well, we'll have the same format as last week, 3 rounds before we send someone home, and then a 2-question final round. Honestly, there's so many places we could begin today, but we'll start with Odell Beckham Jr. In what will surely be the blockbuster trade of the offseason, the Giants traded Beckham to the Cleveland Browns in exchange for a first-round pick, a third-round pick, and safety Jabril Peppers. Justin, I'll have you lead things off, and I'll keep this simple. Where does this put the Browns in terms of their aspirations for next season?
Alex, it's exciting to see the Browns step up and make a trade like this. Odell Beckham Jr. is a dynamic player, one that is incomparable to almost anybody in the league. I'm excited to see what it does for Baker Mayfield, giving him an elite weapon, and also reuniting Beckham with his former teammate and friend, Jarvis Juice Landry. Ultimately, though, the Browns season is going to depend on how far a step backwards the Steelers take, and also what the Bengals restarting means.
Akil?
I don't agree with that because the factory of sadness is closed. Odell Beckham Jr. signifies a change in mentality, and John Dorsey has led that. Freddie Kitchens is the new coach. You saw what he did last year throughout the stretch where they started winning games. When Hugh Jackson was the coach, they were not winning any games. That's the momentum that we need to look at more than anything. The personnel moves are things that were expected, even the pieces that they lost. They lose Kevin Zeitler, they plug in Austin Corbett, who they drafted in the 2nd round last year. They trade away Jabril Peppers in a deep safety class in the free agency market. The Browns are poised to make a run to be the new kings in the North.
Absolutely. Kate, we saw Odell and Jarvis Landry play together in college. That didn't really lead to success for LSU. Does it lead to success for the Browns?
I think so. I'm really excited about this. I love him with Baker Mayfield and Jarvis Landry. I think that's going to be a great connection that they'll have. A lot of what didn't work out well in New York was the chemistry between Eli and Odell, and I think with Baker that's going to rise. I love them. I think they're going to be one of the top teams in the AFC North and might even have a chance to contend for a Super Bowl this year.
Well, we're talking about the AFC North, guys. Where do we think this puts them in relation to the Baltimore Ravens, who are trying to make moves defensively and will have a second year now with Lamar Jackson?
I'm going to go ahead and say they're at the top of the league. I think both the Ravens and the Steelers both weakened in the offseason, and there's a ton of upside for the Browns right now.
Justin?
Lamar Jackson, proved all of us wrong last season. I'm excited to see what he can do this year. I know the Browns had a good year. They were solid. They've made these additions, but I'm still going with Baltimore as the favorite.
So, when we look at this whole Odell Beckham situation, it's been clear for a while that he wanted out of there. Have the Giants kind of ruined their chances of doing anything in the short term? And what does this mean for someone like Saquon Barkley, Akil?
Well, at the end of the day, if the Giants actually wanted to make moves last year, they wouldn't have picked Saquon. They would have picked a quarterback. They would have picked Quentin Nelson if they were building for the future or they were trying to compete now, either direction. Saquon was overvalued at 2 last year, and now they entered this offseason still not knowing what to do. You have aging Eli Manning, who's the last man standing amongst the crew that was just hanging around. So I don't really believe that Dave Gettleman had a plan coming into this season, and I still don't think they have a plan, and I don't think they're going to do that well.
Yeah. Justin or Kate?
Dave Gettleman said that he re-signed Odell Beckham not to trade him, which is just mind-blowing that he would do that and then trade him. Ultimately, I don't know what you're doing wasting a generational talent like Saquon Barkley. He's outstanding. He carries this Giants offense, and without anybody else around him, I don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah, at this point, there's our horn, but at this point, we'll have to wait and see how the Browns do. On that round, Akil, I love the Factory of Sadness is closed quote. You're going to get the 2 points on the round for that. Kate's going to get a point for the chemistry comparison with Baker and Eli. But let's move on. And I'll be honest, I thought the OBJ news was going to be the headline of the night, and then Le'Veon Bell had other ideas. Late last night, ESPN's Adam Schefter reported that Bell will sign with the New York Jets. The deal is reportedly for 4 years and $52 million. For reference, that's $36 million less than Nick Foles is going to be getting in Jacksonville. So looking at the other deals we've seen announced, and given that Bell has ended up on a team that went 4-12 last year, Kate, is it fair to say Le'Veon lost and that holding out last year just didn't work?
Yeah, I think he completely lost this one. He wanted to get a large contract that kind of portrayed him as this dual threat player, and he didn't get that at all. And I think a lot of that has to do with how the market is right now. There weren't many teams going after him, and so the Jets didn't have to bid against anyone else. And so, he basically took the best place he could land, and that's with the Jets, but it's not exactly what he wants. I think having a suspension on his resume, not playing last year, that probably played into this a little bit. But making 13 guaranteed these next 3 years when he lost out on 14 million last year. I think he definitely lost this one.
Justin, what does it say that Bell's taking a deal for 13 million? Does that mean that really there were no other suitors here?
Well, the thing is that his deal kind of closely mimics what Todd Gurley got in his extension. Todd Gurley's the highest paid running back in NFL history. So what Bell did, and I'm sorry, Kate, but I disagree, is he got a year back on the tread on his tires. He found a place where he could be the guy, a place that accepts him, and that's all he wanted. He wanted a place that valued him and said to him, you're going to be our guy and we're willing to pay you over an extended period of time. Running backs are not valued in the NFL, and anytime you have a guy come in that can change a team or change an offense, you want to show him that you're willing to do that and make those sacrifices. So the deal can max out at $61 million. Bell is going to be huge in Sam Darnold's development, and I think that ultimately it'll be a good fit because New York will embrace him.
So obviously, $13 million historically is a lot of money, especially for a running back. But Akil, in a market where we're seeing DBs get 16 a year and Nick Foles get 22, what does this say about how this went for Le'Veon?
At the end of the day, Le'Veon played himself. He had more money on the table last year, and he walked away from it because he thought he could get more. You come into this offseason, the valuation, as Kate said, it just isn't there. So, yeah, of course people are going to be paying more for cornerbacks and linebackers and edge rushers because the league is trending towards throwing the ball more and more and more. Yeah, Le'Veon represents a dual threat, but he can only really do one of those things out of the backfield, and you have to really depend on other pieces on the team to supplement him. That's not the same thing with a corner where you can leave him on an island with the best receiver. So at the end of the day, he's getting the money that he's worth.
Right, and then looking at the Jets, I mean, like I said, 4-12 last year. Sam Darnold, kind of mixed reviews there. Kate, where does this leave the Jets?
I still don't think they're going to be great this year. I don't think they're going to contend. I still think they're missing a lot of pieces, and there's holes both in their offense and defense. So I'm not super high on them this year.
Justin?
The Jets, like Kate said, will not contend, but they'll be fun to watch. You've got a young quarterback who's on the rise, who I thought was the best quarterback in the class last year, although Baker has certainly proved that wrong. And Bell will have the chance to touch the ball quite often and be a hell of a fantasy player for the Jets.
Akil, one quick last thought.
The biggest thing for me when you look at the Jets isn't necessarily what they did with Lev Bell. It's the fact that Adam Gase now has to deal with Lev Bell, and that's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, Adam Gase's start to his tenure here has not exactly been without its memes and its controversy, so you will have to see how things pan out there in New York. Well, on that round, Justin, I love the Todd Gurley contract comparison. You're going to get 2 points for that. And Akil, your analysis about the NFL moving to a throwing league and paying defenders accordingly is going to get a point for you. Well, that's 2 questions down, but we've got plenty more to talk about here on Point Taken. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. You're watching Medill Sports Talk.
At Northwestern, we're Wildcats in every way.
We will cheer you all the go. Go you Northwestern, fight for victory, sweet victory, for the fame of our fair name, and go Northwestern, win that game. Go!
Welcome back to Point Taken. Thanks for sticking with us. Before we continue our conversation about the crazy last weekend the NFL has had, let's talk some soccer, a sport which is usually not front page news, but that's exactly where the U.S. women's national team found themselves this weekend. There they were, the front page of the New York Times, after the entire roster filed a lawsuit against U.S. Soccer, alleging gender discrimination by the federation, specifically how players are compensated when they play for the national team. And they announced this on International Women's Day, no less. Seeing as we're just 3 months away from the Women's World Cup this summer in France, Akil, how big of a deal is this?
Well, as far as overall as a deal, it's huge because they make a lot of really good points. If you look at the financial reports that U.S. Soccer has released, the women have brought in more money than the men have. Granted, a lot of that has to do with the fact that the men missed the World Cup, but that's part of the problem. The men have never been able to compete at the same level that the women have, and the women have never been fairly compensated for that. As far as competing this summer in the World Cup, the players have repeatedly said they're not trying to boycott the World Cup. They care about winning. They care about playing. So they're going to end up there, and they're going to play, and they're probably going to make a deep run because they're one of the most talented teams in the world. But beyond that, they deserve to get more money.
Absolutely. And so, Kate, what was your initial reaction when you saw the story and you saw the attention it was garnering all over sports media?
Yeah, I mean, I think if they go on to win the World Cup, this thing's going to absolutely blow up. I mean, I think it will kind of regardless. But a lot of what they're arguing is pay discrepancies, but also how youth programs are funded, how their sponsorships are run, how promotions, how their coaches, their medical staff, things like that are being paid. So there's a lot more to look into than just the dollars going into their pocket. This is a lot bigger deal than we see on the surface or in headlines. They're arguing for more than just them getting paid right now. A lot of it is for the future and for the generations to come. And so I think this is a huge deal, and I think it's great timing right before the World Cup.
Absolutely, and combined with the International Women's Day note, Justin, a note that's been made kind of as a counterpoint to a lot of this is the fact that the U.S. Soccer pays the salaries of national team players who play in the National Women's Soccer League. Do you think that really should be brought into this conversation at all? And if so, how does that frame things?
I don't really think that's something that really needs to be managed here. I mean, looking back on this as a whole, I really agree with Akil and what Kate said. You know, it's been 47 years since Title IX was passed, and at this point, we need to eliminate gender discrimination. The women's product in America is, in some cases, better and the female stars are more recognizable than some of the male stars. If you look at what they're doing, they should be suing FIFA too, because FIFA allots a much larger pool for the Men's World Cup than the Women's World Cup. And granted, on an international level, it's still a larger product, but at the same time, women's is catching up really fast.
Yeah, I mean, and on that note, a big piece of that is, of course, the fact that there's TV deal money involved, and the Men's World Cup is, the most watched sporting event on the face of the planet. But I mean, looking forward to this, guys, I mean, how does this not only change things, do you think, for the women's national team, but as like the face of women's sports in this country, what does a statement like this from the entire roster mean?
Well, Alex, just to add, I think the Women's World Cup last year was the most watched World Cup game in the U.S. So they have that going for them. I think it adds to women's teams across sports. You see the women's national hockey team, them speaking out more, tennis players. So I think it's doing a lot for women's teams across sports.
No, absolutely. I think no doubt about that. And, I think as kind of like the role models of women's sports, it's a big statement for them to make. Akil, I'm going to give you 2 points for the note about the women bringing in more money the last couple of years. That is true. And from there, I mean, I think, Kate, your notes about funding the youth programs is really huge as well. That brings us to a score of Akil with 5, Justin with 2, Kate also with 2. Kate and Justin, real quick, name a team who was qualified for the NCAA tournament.
Bradley.
And Justin is booking his ticket to the final round. Kate, I'm really sorry we have to let you go, but thanks for coming on Point Taken today.
Thanks, Alex. Hope to be back.
I'm sure we'll see you sometime soon back on the show. All right, well, let's get back to the football. Hey, remember Antonio Brown? Late Saturday night, it was reported that the Steelers have agreed to send Brown to the Oakland Raiders in exchange for a 3rd and a 5th round pick. This a couple days after a false alarm that Brown was on his way to Buffalo. The Raiders will also reportedly rework Brown's contract to make him the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL, although OBJ may have something to say about that. There's a lot of different ways we could look at this, but Akil, I'll start with you. Who is this trade the biggest win for? Antonio Brown, the Raiders, or the Steelers?
Antonio Brown. Easily. He gets out of a place he did not want to play. He gets to go somewhere where he's the focal point, and he got paid. Those are the biggest things that you want as a football player. 9 times out of 10, when you talk to free agencies, what they care about, they say money, 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 and what coach can make me more money. That's all they care about 9 times out of 10. And for Antonio Brown, he got the bag. That's what matters here. I mean, also the Raiders win because you don't give up a lot to get him, but I think the ultimate loser is the Steelers.
Yeah, Justin, would you agree with that?
Brown's definitely the winner. He raised his contract by roughly $11 million and also now has over $30 million guaranteed. He's been teasing wanting to go to San Francisco and still found a way to the Bay Area. He's an unbelievable player. He'll contribute to this Raiders team. The Raiders bought low, but they're still not winners because Brown doesn't put them over the edge. And the Steelers definitely lost because they just lost their 2 best skilled players.
Real quick, does this make the Raiders anything more than they were last year, a team that's going to be at the bottom? Yes or no?
Yes.
No.
All right, so we'll have to wait and see on that. I mean, obviously, the Derek Carr-John Gruden relationship, not exactly on the thickest of ice out there. So then I think we're going to be moving on now to our final question of the day. And aside from OBJ, Le'Veon, and AB, a lot of other stuff happened in the NFL over the last week. Free agency reports were absolutely everywhere. Landon Collins is headed to Washington. Nick Foles getting a huge contract from the Jags. Danny Amendola signed with the Lions, and there were plenty more deals announced. So Justin, we've already seen a crazy amount of money get thrown around. Of all the free agency signings announced so far, who overpaid the most?
Well, I honestly believe Jacksonville overpaid for Nick Foles, but the problem is that's the going rate for a quarterback in this league. And ultimately, Jacksonville isn't looking for a franchise quarterback. They're looking for someone who, once they get into the playoffs, can steward that tremendous defense to a championship. And ultimately, Nick Foles does that to you. $88 million is steep, but that's what quarterbacks are getting. And unfortunately, you have to pay what the market dictates.
Akil?
For me, C.J. Mosley and Quan Alexander, both of them. Because in today's day and age, the best linebackers are Luke Kuechly, Bobby Wagner, because they can do it all and they do it well. Luke Kuechly gets paid about $13-something million a year, and anything above that for Quan Alexander, who's a heat-seeking missile with the inability to finish tackles, or C.J. Mosley, who does everything good but doesn't pass cover exceptionally well, and giving him $17 million, that makes no sense to me.
And real quick, thoughts on the Landon Collins deal. Justin, good deal for Washington or too much?
Well, the thing is I'm kind of on Landon Collins' side here. Safety is one of the most dangerous positions in the NFL, and easily you can see your career end at any point. So I'm happy to see him get his money.
Yeah, I mean, he did definitely get his money. But you know what? I think, Akil, I like that you went off the beaten path there with your analysis. So we're going to give you the win today on Point Taken. 30 seconds.
Well, while we usually talk about sports here, I'm going to swerve to the sports entertainment world because my man Kofi Kingston is going to get a shot at WrestleMania for the WWE title. It's not official yet, but he's going to get it. He's worked 11 years grinding to get that spot, and I'm so excited to see it happen.
All right, well, we never get any WWE talk on the show, so thanks to Akil for throwing that in there, and that is going to do it today for Point Taken. That's all the time we have. Thanks to Akil, Justin, and Kate for joining me, and thanks as always to everyone behind the scenes who makes this show go. This is going to be our last episode for a few weeks here, and it's actually going to be my last time at this desk on the show. It's been a ton of fun, and I know Point Taken will be in good hands going forward. There will be more Medill Sports Talk for you soon. Thanks always for watching. Have a great one.